Hello, geometry. Today we're learning about 3.6, deductive reasoning, and these are the notes for it, so please have your notes packet out, follow along. So first off, deductive reasoning. This is the process of reasoning logically and drawing a conclusion from given facts and statements. So logically drawing a conclusion from given facts and statements is what we're talking about today. So with deductive reasoning, there are two laws in order to draw those conclusions that we're going to talk about. The first one is called the law of detachment. Given a conditional statement, so those are our if-then statements that we've been talking about, if the hypothesis, which we call P, is a true statement, then the conclusion, which we call Q, is true. So this is saying symbolically that if I have an if-then statement, if P, then Q, and P is true, then these three dots represent the word therefore. So therefore, Q is also true. So given an if-then statement, if they tell us, well, the first part is true, we can conclude, well, the last part, our Q statement, is true. So what we are given, here are some examples on your second page. Examples: use the law of detachment to give a valid conclusion. If not possible, write no valid conclusion. So I need to be given an if-then statement, and the first part of that if-then, the P, the hypothesis, must be true. So number one, if Mark saves $30, well, there's our P value, then he can buy a new video game. Here's my Q. So I need them to tell me, well, Mark saves $30. That matches our P. Because these are the same, we can conclude that the Q part of the statement, the conclusion, is true. So our conclusion would look like Mark can buy a new video game. So we just need to add the detail, Mark is the person, he can buy a new video game because he saved $30. So this is a way to validate a conclusion. So number two, if you are 18 years old, so our first part is you are 18 years old, then you can register to vote. Our conclusion, Q. So I need the second given to be that Olivia is 18 years old. But actually they tell us Olivia is not 18 years old. Because not does not match you are 18, Olivia is 18. Because those are not the same, I cannot draw a conclusion because our P part of our statement is not true. So no valid conclusion can be confirmed. So the law of detachment says I have an if-then, and the hypothesis, the first part, must be true. If not, we can't draw a conclusion. So our next law is the law of syllogism. This allows you to draw a conclusion from two conditional statements. So this time we're going to have two if-then statements. And we can only draw a conclusion if the conclusion, the second part of the first statement, the Q of the first statement, is the hypothesis of the second statement. So symbolically, this looks like, well, I have an if-then, if P, then Q. And then my second statement is if Q, then a new thing, R. Because the conclusion of the first is the same as the hypothesis in the second, because they match, I am cutting out the middleman. And I'm saying, well, if P, then R occurs. So we need to have two if-then statements. The conclusion of the first has to match the hypothesis of the second in order to be able to conclude something using the law of syllogism. So what I remember to help me tell these apart is that law of syllogism, I have two L's. Two L's mean I need two if-thens. Two if-thens. So I need two if-then statements. Two L's, two if-thens. So here's an example. Number three, If it is Saturday, that's our P, it is Saturday. Then Q, Jake has a baseball tournament. So we have an if then. Well, now I need that conclusion, Jake has a baseball tournament, to be the start of my second if then. If Jake has a baseball tournament, those are the same, they match. Then he will need to pack his lunch. Because my conclusion matches my hypothesis of the second, I can cut those out. They're the same. And I'm left with the conclusion. Well, if it is Saturday, then Jake will need to pack his lunch. So I'm cutting out the thing that's the same in the middle. And I'm left with, if it is Saturday, then he will need to pack his lunch. So I need two if-thens. Conclusion must match the hypothesis. So on number 4, we need to double check that. If it is sunny this weekend, so that's our P, then you will go boating, Q. And the second statement, if it is sunny this weekend, well, our Q conclusion does not match our P for the second statement. So I don't even have to finish. I know from here I have no valid conclusion. I cannot use the law of syllogism to conclude, then you will wear shorts. Because the conclusion of the first does not match the hypothesis of the second. I cannot conclude anything. No valid conclusion. So now all together, we're going to practice each law and see when it's true and when it's not true, and when I cannot have a valid conclusion. So they're going to give us all this information. We got to determine, is it the law of detachment, or syllogism, or invalid? I can't make a conclusion using those rules. So number 1, if I drive over the speed limit, there's my P, then I will get a ticket, Q. Well, the next given, I drove over the speed limit. This is not an if-then statement. So it cannot be syllogism. Cannot be talking about that. So we're not talking about syllogism at all. We can cross that out. So now I just need to decide, is it detachment or invalid? Well, for detachment, the P value must be told that it's true. So if I drive over the speed limit, well, they tell us I drove over the speed limit. Those are the same. Then I conclude the conclusion, I got a ticket. So this matches, this is our law of detachment. P is true, so therefore I can conclude I will get a ticket, or I got a ticket. That is detachment. Okay, number 2, if Amanda goes to the restaurant, then she will order a hamburger. The next part of the given, if she orders a hamburger, then she will get fries. I have 2 if-then statements. Because of that, we're definitely not looking at detachment. Detachment only has 1 if-then statement. So now I need to decide, is it syllogism or invalid? So to decide if it's syllogism, I need the conclusion, she will order a hamburger, to be the same as the hypothesis for the second statement. Well, she orders a hamburger. Those are indeed the same. So I'm going to cut out the middleman. My conclusion should be, if Amanda goes to the restaurant, then she will get fries. And it is. Because of that, this is definitely the law of syllogism. I cut out the middleman. So what's left is true. Alrighty. Number 3. If it snows, that's our P, then I will wear my snow boots, Q. The second statement, if it snows, then I won't go to school that day. I have 2 if-then statements. Because of that, I don't have detachment. I have 2 if-thens. So now I need to decide, is this syllogism? If it snows, that's our P, then I will wear my snow boots, Q. My conclusion, I will wear my snow boots, needs to be the start of the second statement. Because it is not, then we conclude, because I wear my snow boots is not the start of the second statement, this is invalid. I cannot determine what is going on. So I didn't even have to read the conclusion. Okay, last couple. Number 4. If Tina goes to the beach, then she will wear sunscreen. Well, given Tina goes to the beach, I don't have a second if then, so this is not syllogism because I don't have two if then statements. If it's detachment, they tell us the P is true. Tina goes to the beach. Well, they tell us Tina goes to the beach. That is true. They match. So therefore, the conclusion, Tina will wear sunscreen. Perfect. It matches. This is indeed detachment. Number 5. If you get a cold, P, then you eat, is what that's supposed to say, chicken noodle soup. Given you ate chicken noodle soup. Well, this is definitely not syllogism. I don't have two if thens. But I need to see, well, do they tell us P is true? Well, P, our hypothesis, is you get a cold. You ate chicken noodle soup is not you get a cold. So, we cannot use the law of detachment to conclude this is invalid. And last one. If two angles form a linear pair, P, our hypothesis, then they are supplementary, Q. If two angles are supplementary, then the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. I have two if-then statements, so this is not detachment because I have two if-thens. To decide if this is syllogism, I need to say, well, is my conclusion, they are supplementary, the same as my hypothesis? If two angles are supplementary, they are supplementary. Those things are the same. So when I cut out the middleman, I should be left with if two angles form a linear pair. Perfect. Then the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. Perfect. This is indeed the law of syllogism. If you are still having trouble, please feel free to stop by during bison time or ask Mrs. Copeland or I when you get a chance. I'd love to give you some more help. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.